All right, please welcome to chapter 3, where we're going to look at organizational security. I'm going to blur my background in a minute and remove the AI-generated content in the back, the background graphics. So let's just blur the background to remove that. And today is a dark mode because I'm recording this video later in the day. So we are trying to, as always, keep the videos as short as possible, but because I have to explain some concepts, it may not be too short. Here, I'm going to try 30 minutes or less, but I have three sub-modules in this whole chapter. So this is organizational security, and you have my contact information, a little bio. We're looking at this for the first time. This is the copyright information. All right, that's just a little graphics in here. So when you finish this chapter, you're supposed to be able to identify social engineering techniques, describe typical policies and business agreements, and of course, apply sound user training practices. For module A, you should be able to describe social engineering principles and techniques and identify common social engineering attacks. So the thing is that social engineering is very, very popular for hackers. So that means you as a security analyst, you need to be aware of it, right? So they take advantage of your human behavior to bypass your technical security requirements. So we always say humans are the weakest link in any cybersecurity. So you can have the best tech tools out there, but once we can engineer you socially, we can get through to your network. So you'll hear people call it the hacking of the humans. So impersonation is one of the most common one, where whether by in person or by phone or by email, I could pretend to be somebody else, like a coworker, bank. The whole idea is to get you to let your guard down, and I can get my information that I need from you, right? So social engineering tends to work through things like authority, hey, I'm the CEO, intimidation, do this right now, consensus, everybody else is doing it, so why don't you do it, right? Of course, scarcity, you get an email that says there's only so much remaining now. And of course, familiarity, pretending like you know the person, trust, urgency, do it now, change your password immediately, or buy this item, we have a discount, it's closing at the end of Labor Day or something. For impersonation, if you have organizations that generally have a lot of like guests or visitors, it's easy to do impersonation. Many times, all the person is doing is just really trying to like talk to you and get you to divulge information. This is one of the key elements of social engineering, right? But it's not the only one. It's very dangerous over the phone because you're not able to necessarily eye-to-eye contact and identify the person. Pretexting, the whole idea is I'm going to create a fictitious scenario, right? For example, I'm going to pretend like I'm a delivery driver, right? And I have the name, the contact information. So probably I've done some little investigation, or what we call recon, if I come and try and do this pretext, right? So when somebody's doing a social engineering on you, many times they want to get information from you. We call it elicitation. It's like an interview. We are talking to you. The difference between like interview and interrogation, if you ever worked in law enforcement or be part of being questioned, right? So interviewing is a little more relaxed. I let you do the talking. Whereas interrogation, I'm asking you questions, could be close-ended questions. So it's more like trying to get some specific information, right? So that's just the distinction between interviewing and impersonation and interrogation. So please be aware of the difference between the two of them. Because I've seen that as an exam question. Interviewing is more relaxed. Interrogation is really more, I guess I can use the word adversarial. When we're doing social engineering on people, let me back up to this slide here. I don't want to. Some of the attacks when I'm using social engineering, obviously the recon, right? Reconnaissance to get information, financial fraud, identity fraud, credential harvesting, which is like getting your username and password, Trojan horse attack. If I'm going to do like influence campaign, of course, physical access to restricted area would be a good way I want to do the social engineering, right? So this is like a very good phishing email. When you look at this, if you see this here, you try to pass your mouse over the URL as in the place it says click or the address bar. Usually, if you're on Windows, on the lower left-hand corner, you see the website address, which is what we're calling URL. If it doesn't match what you're expecting, then you should be suspicious. So just be careful, right? For the social engineering, obviously phishing is part of it. The goals of the phishing obviously be communication, sending you a bad attachment, malicious attachment, invoice scam, again, the credential harvesting. Many things the person is trying to do. So think about phishing as say if you go to the water to catch a regular fish like a salmon, we just use a P, H instead of F, right? So what are you trying to get at? Now, so back on the phishing, there are different ways the adversary does the phishing. We do it through the phishing like voice, smishing through SMS, spear phishing and target a specific individual, or whaling, which is phishing to somebody high in an organization like a CEO or somebody of a high financial network. And of course, we have business email compromise, BEC. And then we have a very interesting one, quishing. I always laugh about quishing because when I'm doing training, sometimes I'll give you a QR code for you to scan and fill out your evaluation. But just be careful, where is this sending you to? So it's a phishing done through QR code. It's very popular nowadays, right? Again, on this whole issue about social engineering, be careful about brand impersonation. Somebody, a recruiter offering you a job, like a company branded Twitter account, being used for different things. That's what we're talking about, brand impersonation. All right, so there's something called typo squatting. When I talk about this, I always try to say I have like over 30 websites. Some of them you buy, you park them for different reasons, but the type, and which is not an unethical thing because you're making an investment. Many times I have a website, they will send me a message that your website is worth this amount of money because I want to sell it. But typo squatting, basically, I'm going to mistype a website address, like instead of Bank of America, I do Bank of America or Bank of America, because sometimes we don't really check the spelling. So that's what really typo squatting is, right? You mistype it. Of course, this is one here called clickjacking. It's a related attack in which basically you have like hidden clickable content on a web page, and then when you get there, you can, by clicking it, you get malware into your system, right? So you the word URL hijacking, they're used. So URL hijacking and typo squatting, they sometimes used synonymously. Basically, this honest person registers a domain with a very similar name to a popular website, like say Twitter. Okay. All right. So the whole idea is because people are not very attentive, we're going to take advantage of that. There's this very interesting website. Assuming I know a bunch of students go to a particular website or a bunch of employees go to a particular website, I will affect that website. So when they go there with that website, they will obviously get the malware that I put in there, right? So you tend to identify a vulnerable website first that are going to be used by intended targets. And of course, you compromise the site. So the advantage to this is so it's a valuable way to indirectly target enterprises with strong security. But if I compromise a real website, it just means any kind of anti-phishing tools that you have in your organization or employee vigilance will be less likely to detect it. Imagine when you go to the zoo, you see all these animals looking around to drink water, right? This is where the idea comes about. And then it's a lion in the background waiting for them to come and drink water, and then boom, pounces on them. Similar concept in here for a watering hole attack. As it relates to spam and misinformation, I highlighted the bottom in here, especially with elections and stuff. But let me just talk about spam email in general, just unwanted email. it just wastes a lot of your network resources. But for misinformation and disinformation, the distinction is like misinformation is like somebody incorrectly believes, gets some information and then they spread it. So somebody who actually correctly believes it spreads it, right? And of course, disinformation is basically an actual deliberate uh, lie, right? So you're not misinformed, but you are disinformed because that one is a lie that they just told you deliberately, right? All right, so influence campaign, if you ever heard of Cambridge Analytics and all these other companies that are in charge with trying to sway bully one way or the other, especially on social media. So Twitter and Facebook, they've tried to ban what's called bot accounts, like robot accounts that we can use to like make people believe a particular uh, narrative. And of course, we need to be able to check the veracity of those postings, right? So just understand that you can you can actually target a particular group or entity to influence people's opinion about that. That's just part of you use it in a good way, but you also use it in a bad way, right? So many times we're talking about social engineering by maybe software or somebody calling. But now you can have social engineering physically, like somebody is looking over your shoulders. You're typing at the mall, at the Starbucks or something, or even your neighbor could use the binoculars to look over what you're typing, right? So of course the solution is to use a privacy screen and be aware of your surrounding. Dumpster diving is going to somebody's trash can to get confidential information. This other two, tailgating and piggybacking. Sometimes people in cybersecurity get them confused. Tailgating is I'm following you without your knowledge, all right, without your permission. Piggybacking, I follow you into that secure area with your permission because you are trying to be a gentleman or a nice person to you. You let me in, right? So somebody has a legitimate access and they let somebody that shouldn't go in. So when you're discussing social engineering, just think about it. Why is it so easy? We call it the hacking of humans. So social engineering works well because humans, we want to help, or we are afraid, or some of us don't want, some of us, not me, some people don't want conflict, and so they just give in and do it. Or if everybody's doing it, let me just do it. So how do you solve social engineering? Mostly it's through end user awareness. In the labs, there's some anti-phishing tools that are available out there. Send me a message. I'm not promoting any particular one here. They didn't pay me to promote any tool, but just know that they're very good. So let's look at some few questions in here. When you're doing sensitive work on your laptop at a coffee shop, what should you be aware of? Again, it's through the software, right? If you're in a sales department, you are seeing a bunch of emails, right? But the emails are personally addressed and they say they contain a link to a test site. It requests you to log in, right? So you never sent it on an examination. The suspected test site is a phishing scam. What variation, what type of phishing is this, right? And it's going to be spear phishing because it's targeted specifically, not just casting a net and hoping that I catch something. All right, what security controls can protect against tailgating? Because it's a physical access violation. So you can see the vestibules, even those called man traps will work very well, and obviously security guards, because you're not going to try and follow somebody illegally when there's a guard standing there. This long one is, let's just dissect it here. You can read it on the screen. I paused it there. Developer in your company met someone by the coffee shop in the first floor lobby. You assume she was one of the outside contractors, so she starts having a conversation with this person, right? Says led to discussion of back-end solutions for the company. So you were suspicious and verified that no one that by that description is in the contracting area. So now says, assuming it was a social engineer, what technique did she primarily use to gather the information? So if you take exams, because I'm also preparing some of you guys for the Security Plus exam, which I've had for I think like 8 years now or something. pay attention to the wording. Sometimes the wording can give you a clue about the exam answers, right? All right. What kind of attack are you most likely to encounter on a known website you visit frequently from work? See, right? You know that's going to be watering hole because you visit it frequently. So that means somebody would have poisoned that site. And so module B, security policies. Some people consider this boring, but lawyers like me or guys who are into policies love this, but I'll try to breeze through, but you should be able to differentiate between frameworks, policies, and procedures, plan, secure organization, and contracts, use policies and contracts to address like third-party risk. All right, so some issues about cybersecurity, at least you got frameworks, you got policies, you got standards, guideline, benchmark, and procedures. What I like to say to people generally, policies, this is high level, right? Guidelines are like recommendations. Procedures are more operational, like step by step, right? And of course, the framework are designed by different entities. We're going to see in a minute. So, Joe, whenever you get a question, just think about, am I asking about high level concepts or what day-to-day managers or employees will be doing? That can help you distinguish between, am I talking about procedure or policy? Same standards too. Or am I just talking about recommendation? It's a good idea to do this. It's a good idea to do that. That is guidelines. Some of the IT governance frameworks that we know are listed on here, from the Cloud Security Alliance to NIST. You definitely need to be familiar with NIST because they have a lot from the 800 series, the framework, and of course the ISO organization. But when you're looking at the NIST cybersecurity frameworks, there's three kind of like ways to see them, or you don't want to call it three division, but think about like what are the core aspects like identity, protect, detect, respond, recover. The tiers like partial, risk informed, repeatable, adaptable, and of course the profile that could be unique to your organization, current versus target. So these are the components of the NIST cybersecurity framework. This is a high-level overview. If you want to get the certification on GRC, governance risk, that'd be something that and compliance, right? To know. Now, policy documents, overview, your organization policy documents have an overview. What's the scope? Some details. What are the enforcement mechanism? What is the auditing definition? And then revision history. How you see document, it says last revised, blah, 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 version numbers, right? So, but most organizations, when they have cybersecurity policies, generally you hear what is called an acceptable use policy, right? Like this one is very popular, AUPs, right? You cannot use the company's internet for cyberbullying. You cannot go to personal website, or definitely you cannot go to offensive website, right? So you see SOP here, standard operating procedures are also there too. Credential policies like password policies, it should have so many characters, combination of numbers, letters, special characters. That would be what that one is talking about, right? Okay, remove my annotation. All right, so for AUP, again, internet account, general stuff, mobile devices, password policies I talked about. Let me remove my get rid of this, clear the screen on this annotation in here. All right, leave it on there before it takes up too much of my, delete all of them, clear all my screen, clear all the drawings. All right, good. All right, I just use that to show certain things if I think it's important. Password policies. Now be careful with your password policies because if we publish it, any low-level password cracker, we know how to set their password cracking tools like can enable. If it's just 8 characters, they know what to set. But good organizations need a good password policy that is enforceable, right? All right, credential policies, creation and revocation. How do you authenticate to my network, right? How do we manage accounts? Maybe third-party services like cloud services. These are very, very important because sometimes your organization has good policies, but the third parties can lead to data breach in your organization. Asset management. What do you do about computers, your network appliances, peripheral and devices, your storage media? Just we always say you should have an inventory control. How do you do with your assets? Tag them with a barcode or what kind of readable devices, so it makes it easier to do inventory. You must know every single device on your network and why is there, what is it doing there, so you can avoid things like we get the mobile devices like Evil Twin, Rogue, Access Point, Shadow IT, that stuff, right? So these four concepts here could be confusing, but generally many privacy rules like GDPR would define this. Usually the data owner is the person that is ultimately responsible for that data, like could be like the CEO of the company. And he can delegate. The processor will be like your cloud service provider. The subject will be the person that you are trying to get the information from, right? And now many organizations need a DPO, data protection officers, that I see lawyers gravitating towards. So, right, but this is just a high level. Just know that certain definitions for data, who owns it, who doesn't own it. Now, this slide is a very, very important concept in cybersecurity. We call it secure personnel policy. The doctrine of least privilege. I'm just going to give you what you need to do your job. A mandatory vacation is, I come into the office and I say, hey, John, you go on vacation. Reason is when John goes on vacation, I can have Alice come and check what John has been doing, right? So we can see if John has been doing something illegal. And then job rotation has two benefits. It gives us redundancy so that two employees at least know each other's job. But the whole idea is you rotate them. So maybe when I rotate John and Alice, John can find out what Alice has been doing wrongly. But it also gives us extra knowledge. If Alice is on vacation, John can do her job, right? Now, separation of duty is like if I'm going to be in charge of ordering an item, I shouldn't be the one paying for it. So we can have a check and balance. What it means is for them to be some kind of crime, you need collusion between those two people, right? So separation of duty just makes breaking up sensitive processes into multiple tasks that can be done by different people, right? Now, clean desk policy is similar to that dumpster we talked about. The whole idea is remove information from your desk when you leave in at the end of the day, so that the cleaning crew or you don't have prying eyes that come. HR policies for onboarding and offboarding are very, very important. Offboarding basically reduces the risk if an employee leaves the position or the organization that you've maybe changed their account privileges, disabled the account. Of course, onboarding, which is bringing them in, you should do your background check, verify their references, and of course, provision their resources and their credentials, right? So these two terms here, runbook and playbook, just have a high-level overview, but just the point that runbook basically it's like mandatory or conditional steps that says must be performed as part of your security policy, like reviewing of your logs, vulnerability assessment, and scanning, right? Whereas a playbook might just be more, it says it's a loose workflow checklist that is used to organize or document a security response process. Think about football or something. I call it the real football, right? Soccer, right? You see when you're doing what's called you have set plays. Just think, or American football. How do you see the quarterback with the coach on the sideline going through their playbook, right? Similar concept. For this is talking about secure onboarding and offboarding process, right? One thing you must do in offboarding is to remind terminated employees of their non-disclosure agreement, and of course, retrieve sensitive company issued properties and stuff. And this one sounds bad, but security personnel should escort the person out of the building so they don't have time to go back to their office and put malware in your system or do something bad, right? make sure that everybody knows about it. It's just about documentation. Document your security policy, what happened, AUP, make sure everybody's aware of it and gets a copy of it digitally or at least physically, right? Because we're trying to move away from digital ones, where you maybe read the policy and then sign off that they've seen it. All right, so these are business agreements. Let's not do too much lawyerese here, but just understand NDA means whatever you see while you are working for this company, you're not going to disclose it. The business partnership agreement with like two entities or more. What is the nature of their relationship? The MOU and MOA, you see them, they can be used interchangeably, but MOU is more informal. We just had a meeting today. I'm just going to send you a memo. This is what we discussed. It kind of like informal. To memorialize is the legal term, our discussion. Now, the ISA, Interconnection Security Agreement, like between departments or related entities, what they're doing. That tends to go with like a performance agreement, such as when you sign up a cloud service, right? You just, what's the level of service you're giving me? So this is the internal one, whereas that other one is more like, okay, I'm going to promise you 99.99% uptime because you're using my internet service, right? All right, so that's the one I'm talking about, the SLA. It's similar to the ISA, or the ISA is internal, the SLA is external. Because you have a master service agreement, like the company sometimes will sign an agreement, and that agreement is similar to this one, the master purchase agreement, but in this case for service. So that every other things you do, this agreement could be used to govern that interaction, right? Statement of work, self-explanatory. A request for quotation, request for proposal, request for information are usually done by companies, right? Give me a quote, give me a proposal, give me information on XYZ there. They're very valuable too. Sometimes an RFI is good for you to know, get a little more information about what is happening in the industry. Then you can now formally do a request for proposal. Right? So third-party security concern, this is very, very big. Don't just assume that because you're secure, the person you're doing business with is secure, whether it be with supply chain or other things. If you have shared data, what's the backup? What is the process for data destruction, especially for sensitive information, right? How do you onboard and offboard your business partners? So many times I did a US federal government contract in DC. You have the prime contractor, and then we are subprime. So we come with one of the subprime. Once in a while, you might get an email address, a government email address for the prime, but when you leave, when the contract is finished, they need to get rid of all that, right? And how do you protect privacies of customer information? Many times when you're dealing with third parties, it's good to have a mutual review process to make sure that you are all complying with the agreements. Some quick assessment. What policy document generally describes mutual goals between organizations? It says mutual goals, not a binding contract, right? So automatically here, I'm going to start thinking MOU. Because BPA as an agreement, ISA is agreement, SLA, A at the end agreement, contract. Your company is contracting with the U.S. federal agency. Once you see U.S. federal agency, start thinking things like FISMA, things like, any framework that covers U.S. entities, right? As in U.S. governmental entities. So you must ensure that your solutions are compatible with their policy framework. Which framework are you most likely to become familiar with? Choose the best response, because some of them make sense, but which one? So NIST 800 series, which are the following policies most likely to have rules to prevent excessive network bandwidth consumption? It's not change management, it's not DRP, it's not onboarding. So you're thinking a process of elimination, right? So it's not AUP, it's not disaster recovery, it's not onboarding, right? That's not a very good question, by the way. The VP of Human Resources put you in charge of securing a critical server for the department, right? You will harden it according to policies. Choose the best response. You are the custodian. You're in charge of it, right? Yeah, I know you could think owner, but that's been delegated, right? You're not high up there in the management. You'll be put in charge of doing the work. Right? You have a BPA with a business partner. What most likely isn't a part of it. Choose response. So BPA now. So you're not going to have technical requirements in your BPA now between the two companies. Right? Because the overview document for your, right? Definitely going to talk about how liability is shared, who's responsible for maintaining the assets, right? And when the agreement is dissolved, what happens to that asset? Definitely those will be covered. So technical details are not usually part of BPA. All right, so our final sub-module here, or module in chapter 3, all right, we're going to just look at appropriate security knowledge based on your job roles. How do we promote security awareness, social engineering, and how do you design ongoing training programs? So a secretary or receptionist has a different role than, say, an IT manager, and definitely different than a CEO. So if you're doing role-based training, you do it based on the end users, their responsibility level, incident response team, and of course, incident management, right? And then customer-facing employees like the receptionist, those or the person that answers the call initially, right? Customer service. When you're trying to develop programs on security awareness, you want to make sure that you're telling your employees you want to develop a culture of security awareness. You want to be aware of what's happening, right? So you need a formal policy design, right? This is very, very important. Of course, you need management to buy into your OPSEC. This is the third pillar of a security awareness workforce. It has two aspects: create security procedures for the everyday task and educate employees about why they are important. So OPSEC is very, very important. You see it sometimes you do situational awareness training to help the employees. One good thing now is a lot of companies are understanding the importance of what is called gamification. Because some of the security awareness training are boring. That's just the truth. I mean, if you do it year and year over and over again, people just click through or they just fast forward and they go to the exam question, right? So if you do gamification, you tend to force people to participate a little more. So some typical security awareness guideline, of course, you talked about social engineering, insider threats, password management. Removable media is very, very important. Many organizations don't even want you to bring in USB sticks, right? Forget about CDs. CDs are like going out of stock, but people still do that. And what about cables? Many people don't want you to, if you're going to be charging, don't bring data cables. Use those cables that some of the pins are removed so you can only use for charging. In fact, that's a good security measure for you at the airport to avoid what we call a juice jacking. Don't use data cables, use just charging cable. Because hybrid remote work environment and then definitely how do you report issues? How do we defend against social engineering? Tell your employees what they should share and what they should not be shared in general public. Definitely not. You shouldn't use passwords between you guys. Credentials, don't share your credentials. Somebody comes, oh, Alex, I forgot my username and password. Can I just log in with your information to do some work? Absolutely no. And you should learn to recognize outside suspicious behavior. Make it easy for people to report security issues. For example, if I get a spam email, what do I do? Most of this is send it to security at your domain or phishing at your domain. That way it makes it easy for everybody to just forward it to tech support or something, right? See this first line in here. Let me use my this here. This one about grammatical or formatting errors. That's old school. We'll still talk about it. That's assuming that the hacking is not coming from English speakers. You know, that's a stereotype. I spell it now with the AI developing phishing emails. They are very grammatically correct. But this is old school. Look for errors and formatting errors. Maybe somebody just cut and paste something. So it's still a little, but just be aware, just because it looks great does not mean it's not bad, because it's actually a GPT for hackers. All right, if you have an unfamiliar email address, unexpected domain name, so it's close cousins, which is similar to what we talk about typo squatting. Attachment. I don't like attachments. Mismatch security indicators, unusual requests. So when it's urgent or threatening and unusual language, just be aware of those, right? Let's delete my drawing on here. So please, any question, just let me know about this. That's just how to spot and in general. So how do you identify anomalous behavior or abnormal behavior? First, you have to know what is normal to know what is abnormal, right? All right. So when people try to cut corners, this is a risky behavior. So look for a better way of doing things, right? Unintentional security violation can happen to anyone at any time. So insider threats are not just from what we call disgruntled employees. It could be employees that don't pay attention. If you've had a long work day or something else is distracting you. But just say unexpected behavior, for example, if somebody's doing something, or requesting something unusual. All right, we are continuing from where we stopped. Let me go back to sharing the slide. Hopefully this moves us smoothly. So we had ended up in talking about identifying what is considered an unusual behavior. So to do that, you have to know what is a normal behavior, right? So we're talking about situational awareness and willingness to report anomalies. Reduce the risk. Yeah, security training is costly and many people don't like it, but it's a necessary evil, for lack of a better term. Just vary up your training. Besides just CBT, I told you about gamification is very, very good nowadays. May make people like learn the concept through like game design. Ongoing training is really, really important. Just because you've trained somewhere doesn't mean you should stop. People tend to use insecure password because of the what's called ubiquitousness, the prevalence of bring your own devices. You need to train people more and more and more, right? And even technicians can be very prone to disable security controls as part of troubleshooting or trying to optimize processes, and maybe they don't remember to go and put it back in, or they just feel like, oh, it's too much hassle, because many times you're balancing too much security with usability in organization, right? So how do you know that your training is working, like monitoring your security awareness? Define goals so you can measure what's happening against your goals, to do an initial testing, monitor your performance, analyze collected data, and of course, review your result to see what is happening. Just another, because let's do some review questions here. What kind of training is most important for a company executive, right? Choose the best one. So basically, he just wants to know like an overall awareness of your security assets and threats to them. He doesn't need some deep technical details. He probably might benefit from social engineering attacks, but not picking the best option. The best option is overall. A user reported a suspicious email with a file attachment, maybe a phishing attempt, right? Now look at this. Which of the following is the least useful way for validating it? Choose the best answer. Contacting the sending email address is not really good, because you're going to probably tell you, yeah, it's real. Check the threat feeds, call them directly, right? Now, this D should be done carefully with training, opening in a secure sandbox environment so they can watch and see what is happening. And after that, they can just delete that environment, right? What kind of employees most likely to need extra training about social engineering attack? The reason why D is good is because they are mostly the customer facing one, or the first point of first contact. So you need to train them more so they can know what's happening, right? The coworker proposes security a social engineering awareness program that plants fake threats around the workplace and rewards. So when you see this together, oh yeah, we're going to play a game. So that is gamification. Bug bounties where you pay gray hat hackers after they've discovered a vulnerability. Capture the flag is a CTF, something we do in cybersecurity competition, right? All right. Again, this is just a summary. Just understand common types of social engineering, how they work, how do you protect yourself. You should be able to think about how do you design a good security policy, what are security policies, some frameworks. You can contact me if you have any questions. We've covered a lot in these 3 modules, but hopefully it benefits you in your test. Send me any questions, and then good luck on your exam. And I want to hear some positive responses.